Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market. This is our daily show from Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. GMT, every day of the week, where we discuss all things to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the dog with hat market. We're going to get into everything that's been happening from the last 24 hours in just a moment. But before we get there, I'm your host, Bchek. I'm joined by my legendary co-hosts, Legendary and Sammy. And just a reminder, friends, before we get into some pretty crazy activity in the crypto market from the past 24 hours, where we thought we were back, we then decided we weren't, and then I think we're back now. But just a reminder that nothing that we say here is financial advice. We don't know anything for sure. I don't know if anyone knows anything for sure. This market is insanely risky. Please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, we are live on X. We are live on YouTube. Legendary, it is Wednesday, the 6th of March. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm Jim. Look, I'm currently watching the charts, and I had the case yesterday. I was watching the chart, the BTC chart before all-time high. At the same time, I was supposed to host my show with ZTX,
Sure.
and I didn't even notice that I was muted when I was playing music. So basically, everyone was like sitting there in silence for 3 minutes. I
Yeah.
got like massive pings on Discord to unmute myself, but I didn't know that because didn't notice that because I was so focused on the charts. And I'm also watching the chart right now because we're like $1.50 away from hitting 3.9K on ETH,
Whoa.
which is beautiful.
Okay. I hadn't quite realized that, but I did see this morning that ETH was outperforming. Again, you're
And we're
very
at
right.
3.9K.
Damn. 3.9K ETH on an absolute tear, up 4% against Bitcoin being up 1%. Solana still sitting at 130. I did see a lot of people suggesting yesterday that Solana, to the extent that the people want to rotate between these things, I did see a lot of people suggesting that that would be the rotation at the moment. It's clearly under a little bit of sell pressure, potentially from the FTX estate, not moving as much as the other things. So yeah, still staying stationary there. Sammy, yesterday when the charts were tanking and then recovering, how were you feeling? Were you watching very, very closely? Were you able to do anything else at the same time? How are you feeling about the roller coaster?
I was pretty comfortable. I think it whipped down to about 60K and the bounce back up was pretty savage. So, well, it was in pretty decent. So it was pretty strong buy pressure. And now it's obviously continuing to the upside. So I think it was just getting rid of those liquidations and then back on the move. I noticed that Legendary's got a bull market haircut as well.
Yeah, Oxy's noticed as well. Haircut looking fresh AF.
Have you had a spring clean as well? Because it looks like you've emptied the shelves behind you.
I was just gonna say, in addition to this is what making it looks like, guys. Like, I've been living in a small studio for all the bear market, keeping my costs down. I'm out. I'm done. ETH is up. I'm moving. I'm moving to a nicer area, moving to a better place. I've already started moving out. No, I'm only half joking. I am actually moving, so I will be moving shortly. It is not, unfortunately, because I have made it entirely at the moment, but I will be moving. But a funny thing from what you might be able to see, maybe this is the product of the bull market. This is a plant which was a plant that I kept alive all through the bear market, and it was going fine. Like, I don't really know what happened, but there's literally only one leaf left. But I don't know. It was going pretty well.
Basically, the plant health is inversely correlated to ETH's performance. If ETH is down bad, you take time to care about your plant, and if ETH is going up, you just don't give a fuck. Is that a fair summary?
I think the likelihood of plants surviving is inversely correlated to the market uptrends. I think that's basically what's happening here.
Do you live in a cave as well? Because that plant looks like it has zero sunlight. Proper degen crypto cave.
I think I actually overwatered it, interestingly. So you might think that it's like a lack of something. I think I actually overwatered it. DJ knows the problem in the YouTube comments. DJ Soy, I also forgot to water my plants this week. Look, we're going to forget these things, guys. We need to keep the things that are alive around us alive. We need to try at least. That's one of the things we've got to keep in mind. Sammy saying in the comments, I just don't buy plants, problem solved. That's one way to keep your focus. I don't dispute that. Okay, let's get into the headlines for today. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about stuff from the crypto perspective, because we obviously saw huge liquidations yesterday. Then we saw meme coins rallying back, Bitcoin rallying back, ETH really ripping. So we're going to talk about all of that and what we see happening there. We're going to talk a little bit about NFTs bleeding still quite significantly. We're going to talk about WIF being, really running, and talk about other meme coins, considering whether that's the cycle we kind of really need to try to participate in. And then there's a big headline from MetaStreet announcing a $10 million mega CryptoPunk loan. I've been very big on NFT finance since the bear market, really. And I think we're going to see really interesting ways to unlock liquidity. So Legendary is going to explain a little bit about that in just a bit. So let's get into the headlines. As always, from the snapshot, which is pinned up top, I'm going to share it for the people watching us. And we've got a lot of people watching today. We've got almost 90 people watching on the various streams, either on YouTube or X, probably because that WIF headline, people love the meme coins. But as always, if you're new here, we are going to go through the snapshot. It's pinned up top. This is where you can read all of the news every single day. If you do like it, if you do find some value from it, please do give it a like. Let's get into it. Starting with the price action, we've got Bitcoin up 1% at 67K. ETH up probably almost 5% now that it's gone past 3.9K. Solana is flat at around $132. First headline is $1 billion of liquidations in savage crypto downturn yesterday. However, everything's kind of recovered. Bitcoin ETFs did $10 billion of volume yesterday with 788 million of inflows. So that was a record, which was very impressive. Seems like that's just going to continue now. Is that the new normal? We will discuss. Number two, popular meme coin WIF goes past all-time high, past $2 after a Binance listing, and recovers from the dip as well yesterday. And finally, MetaStreet announces $10 million mega CryptoPunk loan against 60 punks financed by 5,000 lenders. Me and Legendary actually participate in that because we provide liquidity. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Getting into some notable sales, we had a NodeMonk one trait Pepe selling for 4.5 Bitcoin. That's 82.17 ETH. We had another EtherRock selling for 228 ETH. They're becoming quite routine now. That's $833,000. And we had Sam Spratt Pearlescent. It's one of the skulls of Lucy, selling for 70 ETH. That is now $254,000. Getting into the price action for NFTs, we've got CryptoPunks at 55 ETH, Bored Ape down 5% at 14.8, Mutants down 12% at 2.9, beneath mint price for the first time in a long time. DGod's down 7% too at 2.3 ETH, Captain's down 2% at 5.2, Azuki's at 4.3, Penguins at 14.8, up 5%. Mad Lads steady, super steady compared to everything else at 190 Sol. And the Nouns winning bid was at 6.2 ETH. Legendary, that's the price action. Those were the headlines. Any numbers catching your eye before we get into a bigger discussion on the meme coins, on the headlines, and on the rest of the market?
I think on the positive side of things, I do like the Pepe NodeMonk, definitely standing out for me. On the negative side of things, outstanding to see Mutants below mint price. That one is a bit surprising is maybe the wrong term, but it still is shocking to see, because it managed in ETH terms, not in dollar terms at least, to stay above mint price for all that time, no matter how bad it got around the Yuga ecosystem. But now all of the Yuga assets, except of punks, are like down only, and punks are the ones that they're not touching. And that's pretty wild, actually.
Very wild. What do you think, Sammy, about this sentiment on the timeline, which is everyone's kind of dunking on Yuga, or it's something to note, right? People would notice that the Mutants were down 12% beneath mint price. Like, it's a valid thing to notice, in my opinion. And then there was a certain kind of pushback from other significant Yuga holders like, okay, fine, Yu-Gi-Oh's down this amount, but here's like a bunch of other collections that are down more. Like, what do you think about that way of thinking, which is like, like trying to deflect from what's happening here? Look at all these other things that are down more than what we're down. What's your thinking on that?
Well, it's like deja vu with Kevin Rose and Moonbirds, but saying it about Yuga. So it's now like now they've acquired Moonbirds, it's almost as if they're saying it. So it's like a knock-on effect. But I do think it's down to like opportunity costs, because in the market there's so much pumping at the moment. The opportunity elsewhere is probably quite high. So I just think it's people moving their capital to other prosperous things, ordinals or whatever it might be, VC rounds, or they just need the liquidity, or they're just chasing the pump potentially.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got 2 important questions on this that I'm thinking about out loud live. The first question is this proving to some extent that NFTs are just altcoins with pictures? Because if people just want to start liquidating when everything else starts moving because they want to go into other things. And then the second question is that meta of NFTs coming with potential tokens not going to be strong enough to hold if, in the face of this meme coin pump, if everything else is going to go crazy at the same time, it doesn't matter if your project has a 5 ETH floor because it's going to have a token coming in. That opportunity cost is not big enough. Like, your token is not going to drop that person enough capital for them to miss out on a 3-4x on WIF going up in the next 7 days, if that was going to happen. Legendary, those 2 questions are the things I'm thinking about right now.
Yeah, I think it's all a cycle. I think we started with ETH NFTs at a point where like provenance mattered, where we were there for the art, there for the community. That was fine for a time because it was a novelty. Then we started with roadmaps and launching merchandise, and everyone was building AAA games, etc. That was enough to fuel another like hype cycle. Then that like kind of fizzled out, and we needed the next thing to fuel the fire. And we went to basically your NFT comes with a token or it comes with airdrops. So either with our own token or someone else's tokens, but you get tokens for holding your JPEG. Then ordinals started to trend more and more, kind of resetting that stage, stripping away all of the complexity and having again that narrative. It's just the art. It's the provenance, it's on the God chain, we are hunting rare sets, etc. Now we also start seeing infrastructure being built out on BTC as well, and we will have, and we've seen the first like steps into airdrops for ordinal holders. I think we're always like moving in this cycle from trying to find added value for NFT, whether that's a roadmap, a token, a game, whatever it is, to being back and purely saying, hey, it's a very puristic approach. That's just a JPEG, doesn't need anything on top of it to have value and pump. And then, oh shit, we need extra utility for it because the rest of the market is pumping. So like, I feel those are the stages that we're cycling through or have been cycling through for the last like 3 years.
Interesting stuff. Sammy, do you have any reflections on those kind of 2 questions? Like, is it, are these NFTs just altcoins with pictures? Because when in the face of these pumps, they're just going to get sold in order to try to allocate somewhere else. And can they sustain even with a narrative where, you know, we're going to give you a token later, but it's like, well, that's not good enough if these other tokens are going to be moving at the same time?
Well, I think it comes down to patience, and I don't think people are very patient. So if you lock up your tokens that you're going to get in the future for say 6 months or whatever, most people are going to sell just for liquidity. People have shiny object syndrome. They see something pumping and they feel FOMO, so they liquidate at a discount in order to follow and chase that other thing. So whether it's selling like the captains, for instance, knowing that you're going to get a lockup of meme unlocked in at some point in the future or trickled through, but you just want that hit of dopamine from ordinals or something like that where you can make a bigger return. So I think there is that, and it's a lot more risky, but I do think that is probably what's happening a little bit. I can't remember what was the other question.
It doesn't matter. But to your point about people not having patience, I started thinking of the next point I was going to make, which is this. And then I see Confusion with his hand raised, and Jack as well. Want to hear from you in a second. Before we get to this tweet that Anson put out on just like where some of these meme coin valuations could go, It just made me think that like this type of thing, and I don't know what this project is, I don't know the details, but I just think projects are taking too long and they have started to farm us. Like, you know how obviously you can be an airdrop farmer and we can farm protocols in order to receive a return. I think it's flipping now where they've started to farm us and people are going to get tired pretty quickly because the opportunity cost is now not there to spend doing that time and they're going to lose out. And let me give you an example of that. So it's actually in the snapshot today, which is pinned up top as always. We had Pike Finance. Again, I don't know much about Pike Finance. I just thought this was an interesting approach. And maybe I've missed some of the details. It was just like a quick read that I did this morning. Pike Finance announces Discord role allocations for DeGods, Mad Lads, Tensorians, Penguins. And the details of this, I'm going to share this on screen for people watching in because we've got 145 people watching in on screen with us on X and YouTube. But I'll read it out for the people just listening in. It said, Pike Finance, instead of earning points, you'll earn the token, which can be traded or swapped. There's no referral program, and deposit caps will be raised from $500 to $15,000 at launch. Holding that token will increase your chances of guaranteeing a whitelist for the Pike community presale, size of contribution and discount. So instead of now holding an NFT and just getting an allocation or an airdrop or something, you may have to hold an NFT in order to get a Discord role, in order to earn some tokens, in order to get the opportunity of buying into the presale where you actually get to get your tokens. Like, to me, that structure of incentives is like asking for a hell of a lot from the rest of the community. Legendary, like, what do you think about that? To me, that just seemed like, well, hang on a second. There's almost no amount of money that you'd be able to be put like dangling in front of me for me to get tempted by going through all of those steps. And again, I don't know if I've read all of those details perfectly, just a quick read in the morning. If that is the case, what's your response to that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Haven't put too much thought into it, to be quite honest, but just from the first read and look of it, it feels like it's getting too much in terms of the steps that you have to follow and execute for a potential reward.
Agree. Like, yeah, that was kind of my thinking. Let's go to Jack and Confusion, and then we're going to get to this tweet from Ansem about potential meme coin valuations. Confusion, welcome to the stage, my friend. It's been a while. How are you doing? What are your thoughts on kind of meme coin mania at the moment?
Hey, yeah, it's been a while. But I've been enjoying listening to your spaces when I can. And yeah, so I think what you guys are saying about, like, I guess ETH NFTs in particular, like having a bit of a downtrend. I personally have been de-risking a lot of my ETH NFTs recently for other things. And kind of being a bit more risk on with things like meme coins, just because when I speak to like people who are I guess normies, right? Who probably bought crypto like 2 years ago and now are looking at it again. They are looking at meme coins and it's just like kind of more easier to understand for them. So yeah, I have been kind of de-risking a bit more, and then opportunities with ordinals and things like that where there's a little bit more liquidity. But I do think it is a cycle, like Legendary is saying. Like, I am keeping some of them, especially the ones with tokens, because we are seeing token pre-sales do pretty well.
Sure.
So yeah, I do think now with ETH coming back up, I do think there will be a little bit more focus on ETH NFTs. But I just think there just is an opportunity cost of kind of the I guess amount you can make in a meme coin. Obviously, there's a lot of risk as well, but there's a lot more opportunity cost, a lot more liquidity in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just think with like things like Bloomberg reporting on this sort of stuff as well, it just seems like a no-brainer to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're alone there at all, Confusion. I think a lot of people have been either thinking about doing what you've done or doing what you've done. Like, there's clearly more liquidity on ordinals at the moment. and also a better narrative in the sense that everything's on the way up, right? Rather than starting at really high price and trying to justify that every day. They're starting low and then like working their way up. Whereas ETH NFTs have obviously been around for much longer. And so they every day having to justify being 3 ETH, having to justify being 5 ETH or whatever price they are. So there's that kind of battle that they have to deal with, which ordinals just don't have to deal with. You mentioned normies. I want to give a quick shout out to Sunny Delights in the comments. Sunny's actually a friend of mine in real life. He's one of the normies that you're speaking about, Confusion. So I'd love to know from Sunny in the comments, what are you buying, Sunny? What's catching your attention as one of the newer people to crypto? What kinds of things are you interested in? What's caught your attention as someone who is not here every single day like some of us? But what is grabbing your attention? So I want to hear from Sunny in the comments, and I'll share that with you so that we can buy it before him and sell it to him a little bit later by the time he's figured out how to use a centralized exchange or something. Jack, welcome to the stage, my friend. What are your thoughts on the meme coin mania?
Yeah, it's crazy, but also like very narrative driven. Like we have seen this before last cycle. Just shout out to Sunny, like with a name like Sunny Delights, like you belong in this space. So I'm glad to see that you're now finally here.
That's his real name.
What, Sunny Delights?
Oh, no, not the Delights, but
no, exactly. That's the bit. Like using Sunny to go into Delights is just like chef's kiss. Like just excellent meme ability right there. But yeah, I think yesterday on Spaces, and I was literally like most of the day on Spaces, ETH NFT sentiment is 100% at an all-time low. Like it just is. I think what we're seeing with Bored Apes is, I think a lot of people from historic like 2021 times who caught that initial Bored Apes train are seeing that now on ordinals, and they're getting a little scared. I think that, you know, they're literally seeing history play itself out, and they're concerned that they're going to miss the next pump after being in the space for 2 years, learning all those lessons, and they think they're seeing history repeat itself on a chain that they just haven't been paying as close attention to, and now having to buy in at higher prices. With ETH as well, you also have to like the maturity of the projects. Like they actually have to deliver things, whilst with ordinals it seems to be more like ETH 2021, where good art, marketing, a historical narrative equals up only. So that's, I think they're the two big things that we're seeing, and obviously ETH on up only as well. Outside of that, I think I'm looking at projects holding floors right now, as opposed to like moving up across both chains. So like one thing I don't think we've touched on, but Quantum Cats, like they really have like a steady floor compared to like Node Monks, which was at 0.9 just 2 days ago. And obviously that really is just down though to the fact that they have actually had an announcement as opposed to anything else, where essentially they're now deflationary Quantum Cats, because there's certain traits that are now evolving on the Quantum Cat side. That means that you can claim your Quantum Cat for a Taproot Wizard, which was announced yesterday, but just went under the radar with all the market turmoil that was happening. So I think that's like really interesting. On the meme coin side, very interested in MOG right now. I don't do meme coins often, but after a post from Frank DeGods on his account, which basically said when he was at ETH Denver, that was the most talked about coin. So I bought like 1 billion of it the other day, and it's up about 50%. And it does seem to be going in the right trajectory. A lot of people still talking about it, but that's IRL is always a good sort of pulse on what is happening with those coins. So yeah, very interested in that one.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting thoughts across the board there, Jack. One of the things I was thinking about, and we are just talking about in the private chat here, is like, and DC Investor tweeted about this. Like, I don't think ETH NFTs will be dead by any stretch of the imagination. I do think lots of things are overvalued and have been for some time. And for the types of communities that need to constantly justify a price, they need to make sure that they're always doing stuff. But I think if ETH like rips, which it is doing today and is going to continue to do, DC Investor's tweet was something like, I'm going to try to find it. It's something like, you've got to be crazy to think that those like very high-end culturally relevant NFTs will not move as well. But, you know, that's a kind of different point to the market for the people who are newer here. Like, it's not the same as buying your profile picture and just assuming that's going to go up because ETH is going to go up. No, he's talking about the culturally relevant things, the historic things, probably the quality art things like squiggles, punks, fidenzas, maybe some other art blocks as well. I think those things will really move again. We can't be certain for the other stuff, right? Because they always need to justify those prices on a routine basis. Legendary, you wanted to come in here, and
yeah,
then
I got the tweet by DC, also posted in our private chat, so we maybe
thank you.
share it. He said, imagine fading ETH NFTs when ETH is likely about to have one of the most insane cycles in crypto ever for a major cryptocurrency. Trade for money if you need, but make sure you accumulate the culture, which will matter for decades.
Love it. Couldn't say anything. Couldn't say it better myself. Confusion, I think you wanted to come back in there. What was your thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that with, I guess, meme coins, there's a bit more of a network effect. So like with NFTs, like say Bored Apes, there's only like 10,000 or something. So there's just 10,000 people like talking about it. Whereas like in this kind of market with everything going up, it's all about attention. So, things like, I think was it Jack, you mentioned Mog. People are putting those Mog glasses on, and like anyone can buy Mog, or like dog with hat. Anyone can buy dog with hat and then put the hat on their PFP. So I think that also makes it a little bit more interesting. And I feel like just that network effect alone just feels like,
Yeah,
I don't know, in this market, meme coins are just a little bit more interesting than NFTs.
yeah, completely fair enough. The network effect is a very important thing. As you know, when things are ERC20s as opposed to NFTs, which are ERC721s, like you have more holders. Like you can attract more holders because they're listed on exchanges. People can buy it there. Like you just have more people being able to push the narrative if they manage to capture the attention. I wanted to go to this tweet by Ansem, which I've been speaking about in terms of valuations on meme coins, because obviously WIF, we've spoken about already, really moved a lot in the last 24 hours after that quite savage drawdown, although there was a point to be made. Let me just try to find the tweet. I can't find it at the moment, but so WIF obviously drew down aggressively yesterday and has recovered more than ever. It's now at an all-time high above $2. What do we think about this tweet from Ansem, where he tries to make sense of the variety of moves happening, putting some meme coins into different categories and thinking about it like that? Let's go through it. He said, all right, my fellow friends, I need somebody to make a meme coin tier list. We have a month of insanity ahead, I feel. So this tweet was written 2 days ago. We've already had some very big insanity. Do we have more to come? That's his prediction, I guess. But here was some of his, and then we'll try to tease it out. Between 10 billion plus, so for coins which, well, I guess he's suggesting they should go to 10 billion plus. He has Doge and SHIB. For 1 billion to 10 billion, we have Pepe, Bonk, and WIF. And then 100 million to 1 billion, he's got Trump, Mog, Bitcoin, and Welsh. So the best memes sub 100 mil have a high likelihood of a 10x if all of these re-rate together. So I guess that what's kind of in his mind there, Legendary, is a 10x for certainly the memes below 100, with space to go up to 1 billion. The things that are maybe around 1 billion at the moment, a space for a 10x to move up to 10 billion, and so on and so forth. What's your thought on this idea and that space for growth?
I think from the perspective of having Doge and SHIB on top of that, and you talk about like retail FOMOing into meme coins, at least Doge has been around for such a long time, and like basically everyone who has heard anything about cryptocurrencies and has heard the term meme coins has heard about Doge in any context. So that is probably like the easiest to ape in, as opposed to like the Mog and then the other meme coins of this cycle that we are like looking at within our bubble. I think in terms of the growth potential, it's a bit of like tea leaf reading what can happen with the smaller ones. Obviously, yes, they can do a moonshot, but they also can end up doing nothing. Mm-hmm. So in general, like I agree with the tier list from the perspective of how well known something is and has established itself over the last years. I don't think that we like generally can say that the smaller ones will do a 10x just because they are smaller.
Okay, fair enough. Sam, any thoughts on this?
I think the price brackets that he's brought out, I mean, he's pretty much benchmarked it against prior all-time highs. I'm pretty sure Doge or SHIB was around about the 10 billion mark. So I think he's assuming that, okay, well, that's a good threshold for those new up-and-comers to come through at the same price. But it's not to say that they couldn't go a lot higher. Like if you expect Bitcoin to go to a couple of 100K this cycle, then there's no reason why SHIB or Doge couldn't go to 20 billion. In which case maybe the others are going to flow a similar liquidity. I think looking at the lower tiers, so as Legendary mentioned, it's probably more risky, but if they're likely to get listings at tier 1 exchanges, then I think that kind of gives them some sort of longevity. I think if they're not yet on an exchange, then there's probably a lot more risk. So the recent listing, was it Binance for WIF? I mean, I think that's pretty much solidified itself as that mid-tier to upper tier. I don't know if we've yet seen it at that WIF at the Doge or SHIB level, but I mean, it's another dog coin. It's pretty amusing. So who knows? Let's see.
Fair enough. I think those are fair points. I want to get into the kind of ETF flows again, just as a quick point as well. But I've just seen we have NFT stats with us up top again after a few days. Great to have you with us, my friend. What's your take been, Sam, on all of this meme coin mania, the crazy liquidations yesterday, the very speedy recovery? What are your thoughts?
Number go up. I don't really know. I mean, but it's hard to. I was at ETH Denver and I actually saw Anson, and I was like, "Well, what's the trade right now?" And he said, "Everything, buy everything." I think. Look, I think most of this will end in pain, and I think we will look back at how silly some of these conversations were about how, about how all these fundamental drivers make meme coins uniquely different from every other crypto asset or something like that. And you can always put out the reasons for it, but ultimately, I think it's hard for a lot of these things to survive the test of time. Though clearly, Doge and I think one of the big things is like no one made more money in crypto than the people who were into Doge made in Doge. I think like that. I when I was driving home from the Nuggets game where I saw Ansem, my taxi driver was telling me about how he knows nothing about crypto, but his biggest W ever was in Doge. And so I think that has created this sustainability of the meme coin cycle, because people, like, all that it takes for these things to do well is for people to really believe, and I think that Doge has created real believers because of how much money people made, how it's kind of continued to, obviously it's completely dumped versus all-time highs, but like it's done pretty well relative to what I think any economics professor, anybody who is critical like I am, would have ever expected. It still has a $25 billion market cap. So, I would say I'm pretty mid-curve when it comes to meme coins, as you can tell from what I'm saying. So I feel like I'm not the expert. I'm just rambling because you asked me to.
Very much
more thoughts on NFTs, but I'm trying to get better at meme coins, largely because I'm working for a company called Meme.
Yeah, look, I think all of those are very reasonable takes, and I think one of the reasons why there's an element of stress now is because people are trying to jump between different hot things, right? And they're trying to go from one to the other, then one pumps, and then they think they need to be in that one. The big question though, Sam, and maybe I'd be interested from your perspective, as a self-proclaimed mid-curver, to see what you think about this, and then maybe to hear from some other people too, because I think I agree with you in the sense that everything is moving up, and that's seems to be consensus across the board from some of these other traders. But in terms of the meme narratives, like, okay, Doge was the previous cycle's top performer because we loved the Doge back then. But people like OSF and other big traders have said, like, look, that was last cycle's trade. The attention now sits. I think the big bet was made a little bit before WIF on Pepe, for example, on ETH, and that has been completely sending. Then there's also been WIF now, which has completely captured mindshare too. Like, do you have a sense, or did people at Denver, for example, have a sense of like, okay, that old Doge has still got that mimetic power to send during this price, or have we moved on from then? Like, what was your sense from Denver? Sam, did you want to come in on that? Maybe not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't really talk about Dogecoin with anybody in Denver, and I don't really mean that like negatively. It just never really came up. I tweeted like I was on the top of a ski mountain over the weekend, and I with a couple actually Ordinals guys who came and visited, and I tweeted literally like the dumbest thing I could ever tweet, which is I tweeted. Dogecoin is like 1/5000th the value of Apple, and Apple doesn't even have a hat. No, not Dogecoin, WIF. I said WIF is 1/5000th the value of Apple, and Apple doesn't even have a hat.
Yeah.
And it got like 1,500 likes. Like this thing, like that thing made moves. And that is the meme. Like I don't own any WIF. I just tweeted that, you know. And I think like that it is very mimetic. Like it is very easy, I think, to send tweets about WIF because it's so ridiculous. Like if you want to tell your friends how ridiculous crypto is, like WIF is like the first thing you send them. And I think that that's kind of what the value of Doge was. I mean, Doge had a founder that swore it off as the stupidest thing ever the minute he made it and sold all of his, you know. And I think like that it's definitely like the dumber the better when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So I think that you know, or the more viral the better. And I think that WIF certainly has that in a way. At least for my personality, I find it's like so ridiculous. The other ones I can't quite. I don't know. So I kind of like it, but I think it's hard to. I don't know. I have heard a lot of people like say that Doge is like the boomer meme coin, and that feels kind of accurate relative to the vibes on the timeline.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, maybe we could do a test on this during the course of the week, Sam, because you're talking about the engagement you got, and I do think the media or the people in the media, like ourselves and yourself, like we get a really good handle on the way things are moving via engagement. But I just messaged the boys, but in the private chat. And I actually mentioned on the show, like we normally have, you know, the same number of people in the Twitter spaces, like 100 to 150, but we have 200 people watching today live across YouTube and X, and that is just not common at all. And it's, I suspect, because we have WIF in the title.
Let's go, B-Check. Well, that's one thing I would say. When I was doing I did a daily show on NFTs. I did over 200 episodes, and the two that got the absolute most views were the ones where I had Pepe on the thumbnail, and one where I had Turbo on the thumbnail. So it is a much bigger audience for sure that wants it. Yeah, look, we see it at Memeland. I mean, WIF right now is worth more than, I think it's worth more than CryptoPunks are worth. Like the speed with which the value of these things just rockets is, I mean, yeah, like WIF, I think that WIF is worth more than the floor-based valuation of CryptoPunks. You know, so the speed with which these things can gain value, you know, it's kind of on another level.
Yeah, very fair enough. Very interesting insights there from kind of behind the scenes and from the media. Thanks a lot, Sam. That's really interesting. Legendary, want to come back to you for a moment first. Like, do you have any reflections on what we were just talking about with Sam and this idea of like WIF being the new meme, like the newly crowned meme, along with maybe Pepe? Doge is for the boomers. Forget about it. Like, what's your thought process there?
I mean, boomers have money though, right?
It's true.
So
It's true.
they can sustain that insane FTV that Doge has managed to have over the last couple of years. I don't know. I think the more we think about meme coins, the more we tend to just mid curve it. I think that the majority of people buying a meme coin just think number will go up, and they don't think about like the cultural relevance of it. I feel like all of the talk that you hear in so many spaces about like cultural relevance of meme and that being the reason it pumps is mid curving it to a certain extent, because it gets attention on the timeline. People talk about it. If you have that as a title of the show, just as we did, or as Sam just mentioned, you get more people, and people ultimately buy it because they want to see number go up. And I don't think that it is an intellectual cultural discussion around the memeability of a meme.
Yeah, we have to talk about something though, don't we? We have to try to create some type of discussion around it. But I think ultimately you're probably right. whilst we're here kind of intellectualizing it a little bit, trying to analyze it to some degree, some people are just throwing the money in and hoping that it goes up because they like that picture of the dog with the hat on it. It's pretty cool, and other people seem to like it too. So why not get involved? Let's go to. I just want to shout out Sunny again. So we asked him the question: what are you buying? What are you interested in as the friendly retail normie? So that we know what we can sell him. He said, quite a very responsible answer. So at the moment, I want to start the simple stuff. With the upcoming Bitcoin halving event, I see crypto explode. I have Bitcoin and Ethereum, but through this forum, I learned about Solana. So I have bought Solana. Okay, pretty cool. What he said was, what I'm struggling with is all the coins going up. When is the right time to buy? Should we wait for a market adjustment? Sonny, if we knew the answer to that, we would not be here. That is the key question. We never know. But I agree. Pretty responsible little portfolio you're building yourself there. Wondering when you're going to get lured in to lower down the risk curve. Jack, your hand is raised. Coming quickly on this because then we want to get to some of the monster Bitcoin ETF inflows.
Yeah, to be honest, all I want to say was boo to Legendary and NFT Stats for coming in with some logic over my mog bags. Like, just not on, guys. Like, B-Check laid it up perfectly for me 10x in my bags, and you just absolutely shit on that. So yeah, I'm just you both went down in my estimations for shitting on my bags.
I mean, I said I was mid-curve the minute I said any of this stuff. I basically disqualified my opinion from being relevant.
Not good enough, Sam. I thought we were friends.
You're my favorite. You're my favorite ball poster. Number one.
Okay, I'll take it. As long as you can just tweet something to that effect, we're friends again.
What's the MOG market cap right now?
It's infinitesimal. It's so small.
Right. Are we going to be moving the price, Sam, with some tweets?
I just want to find it. I can't find it.
I think it's 300 mil, right?
It's not actually as much as some of the other things, for maybe relative to how much attention it has.
Yeah, 340 mil. I mean, like that we should call Buffett. I mean, this is a deep value play.
Wildly undervalued relative to the other very safe investments that we are comparing it with. Okay, so we've spoken about meme coins. We've spoken about primarily WIF, but also tried to compare it with some other ones to get a sense of what's going on. Hope that was interesting. I think we want to touch on a little bit to do with the inflows and just like how we respond to in the face of such titanic inflows. But before we do that, let's get you up to speed with what else has been happening in the NFT market from the past 24 hours. As always, this is from the snapshot, which is pinned up top. If you are unfamiliar, it goes out every single day and it gets you up to speed with what's happening in the NFT and crypto market. If you find it brings you some value, please give it a like. We've been through the headlines. We've been through the notable sales already. Some other news. Eric Voorhees' crypto exchange Shapeshift settles SEC charges. Number 2, Mintify announces a new Blast marketplace live this Friday with a Mintify key sale. Interesting to see that Mintify is launching on Blast before Blur seems to have launched an NFT market on Blast. So I want to monitor that. Next, Doodle announces IRL immersive gallery experience in April in NYC. I think Doodle's doing an awesome job with IRL stuff, so looking forward to see how that looks. Number 4, Des Lucrece raffles for Bitmon ordinals are now closed. There's all kinds of people. I've noticed that more and more people are moving to ordinals, and it's definitely something we want to try to stay on top of. Lucrece is an awesome artist, so want to see how that performs. Next, Thread Guy takes over Web 2 with appearance on Adin Ross stream, my co-host from my second show of the day, which we do every single day a little bit later. It's at 6 p.m. GMT. What's that? 1 p.m. Eastern time. Bringing in the next set of exit liquidity, I hope, by bringing in some Web 2 influencers, some very prominent people to sell the coins to. We'll have to message him about that. Next, Bold Leonidas announces details for a pixel art drop on Bitcoin called Boldinals. If you're not familiar with that artist, it's the artist who produces the little kind of comic strips every day in Mando's Minutes, which is really cool, really funny, awesome artist. Very much looking forward to what they produce for their ordinals. And finally, that point I made earlier about Pike Finance announcing Discord roles. Discord role allocations for D-Gods, Mad Lads, Centaurians, Penguins, and more. And kind of just making the point, it seemed like a lot of work to be able to get this potential pre-sale. And it seems like there's a trend of trying to make these NFT holders really work for their allocation rather than just airdropping them something and making it easy. So if you are one of those holders, probably check it out and could still be very useful. So do check that out. Legendary, that is the Web3 roundup from the rest of the space. We want to touch on the Bitcoin ETF inflows. Do you want me to give you some numbers to work with here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so I'm going to get this up on screen again for the people watching in. We had our favorite Bitcoin bull, Fred Krueger, who is very much attacked on the timeline recently for his views on the ETH ETF, because he was saying that the biggest potential problem for Bitcoin is the ETH ETF, because it's going to distract Wall Street, and we've got to try to make sure that there's only one ETF they can buy. Nevertheless, his reporting on Bitcoin has been pretty good. He quote tweeted here to say $10 billion USD in volume yesterday for Bitcoin ETFs. This was on top of Eric Balchunas tweet, the senior reporter at Bloomberg, where he said the 10 Bitcoin ETFs did 10 billion in volume today, smashing previous records set last Wednesday. Volatility and volume go hand in hand with ETFs, so not totally surprised. That said, these are bananas numbers for ETFs under 2 months old. IBIT, FBTC, BitB, and ARKB all with record days. A couple more numbers from the ETF inflows. We saw Farside Investors report that BlackRock had inflow of 788.3 million. So basically getting towards a situation, or moving towards a situation, where there's almost $1 billion moving in per day. And so Andrew Kang's thought on that is that we will pierce through to all-time highs very soon. In their opinion, this is nothing guaranteed. No consolidation, no dips, just up only. Legendary, gave you some numbers to work with there. What are your thoughts in the face of this relentless Bitcoin ETF buying? How does first crypto respond, and our dear NFTs, the dear NFT market, how will it respond to this just relentless buying?
Yeah, I think it's utterly insane. I think even the correction that we saw yesterday, basically people getting wiped out, absurd funding rate. I think funding rate, OSF had pointed out, was like at 120% for BTC per year. So basically meaning if you long BTC, you pay 120% per year. So BTC needs to outperform that for you to even be profitable on a leveraged trade. Obviously, very few people, funding rates in crypto is something you look at an hourly base and don't extrapolate necessarily to yearly. But just putting that into perspective to see how much like leveraged exposure there was on the long side of things, plus the inflow, is insane. And on top of it, yes, we had the correction yesterday, and obviously I was like joking on the timeline, it's over, see you again in 2 years, blah, blah, blah. But just the fact that I went to sleep and I woke up and everything is back to the price where it's been before, essentially, and ETH is like even powering through that, having hit 3.9K at the start of the show. It's just by any means and standards, those numbers are like unbelievable. I think we also had the comparison with gold, and being like at 50% where gold is. We had the comparison with all other ETFs before, and that buying volume is absolutely unparalleled for an ETF.
Yeah, pretty outrageous. Ferocious demand. Just seeing in the comments, just going back to the meme coin stuff, definitely some buyers, Bread, getting tempted into buying purely based on our conversation of the virality of Sam's tweet and actually of the show. As I said, we've got almost 240 people watching in live on top of the usual number of like 160 live listening in. I suspect because of the title that we've created. A very interesting indicator. Just a quick side note before I throw to Sammy to go into more on the Bitcoin stuff. But like when this bull market was forming back in, I don't know, October, November last year, the first signs was when we started to feel the engagement like ramping up. And when we started to feel that I can't quite stay on top of all the things that need to go in the snapshot every single morning when I write that, that was like a perfect indicator. And so I think there's real merit in using engagement and virality as one of your indicators, not necessarily the only one, but at least as one of them. Sam, I think, Sammy, you wanted to come in here on the Bitcoin side of things. How do you think, Legend? I agree with a lot of what Legendary said, but what's the implications for maybe ordinals here and the rest of NFTs if Bitcoin just keeps sending higher?
Well, just one point with what Legendary is saying. We're seeing a lot of inflows at the moment, and I think the volatility that we saw yesterday, that did concern me a little bit, because I guess it's institutions' first experience of a sudden 10% drop within a couple of weeks. And I don't know if they do get spooked, then there's nothing to say that those couldn't end up becoming net outflows to a similar amount of volatility, and you're going to then experience the opposite of what we're experiencing now in terms of price action. So there is that I'm just kind of monitoring. I do think that from the ordinals and ETH NFT standpoint, well, historically it's been when there's been a big price pump, then ETH NFTs and ordinals have suffered, but it's not necessarily the case with ordinals. I think it's almost like the sentiment is it's up only, therefore let's take a leveraged position in ordinals as like a leveraged position on Bitcoin. Let's stack those sats quicker. I don't know, as ETH's now pumping, we could see a similar thing with ETH NFTs. And I think the CryptoPunk sale, the 16 million one yesterday or the day before, was probably a good example of that. I mean, no one's going to pay that amount not thinking that it's going to go up even more, or that's the trajectory that we're going to be going. So I suspect we'll see a bit of a reversal. I don't know which collections those are going to be. I do think that time will tell. So
I think that's a very fair point. For some reason, and I want to throw to Akin here in just a second. We don't have much time left for today's show, just got a couple of minutes. But for some reason, the leveraged bet on ordinals right now feels like a safer one than the leveraged bet on ETH NFTs. Like, it feels like it's easier to stack Bitcoin via doing a bit of messing around with ordinals than it would be leverage betting on the ETH NFTs, which seem to be really struggling to justify their valuations at the moment. That's just like an instinctive feeling. Haven't thought about it too much, but would love to bring Akin in here. Welcome to the stage, my friend. It's great to hear from you either yesterday or a couple of days ago. What's your thoughts as someone who's like playing around on Bitcoin a little bit more too, with respect to ordinals being a leverage bet on Bitcoin in the face of ordinals? In the face of Bitcoin getting so aggressively bought by the ETFs at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, what we're seeing with the ordinals right now is they're essentially the representation of memes on Bitcoin, right? Because a lot of these assets are essentially rallying points for communities, right? Sans anything else, right? You're seeing people on the timeline, you're seeing communities like develop memes and talk about it, right? And so to a large extent, I think for now, those sort of represent, I do agree, it's a leveraged exposure to Bitcoin. And I do think it's a lot more sustainable than trying to sort of time the bottom of the ETH NFTs, where frankly, the vibes are just really, really poor, right? And so if you use these NFTs as a measure of vibes, right, I think on ordinals they're high, right? The Bitcoin tokens are doing extremely well, right? And I think they'll continue to go up. And maybe things change once the Runes protocol gets launched and you can actually launch real fungible meme coins. Maybe then you have some sort of competition. But I have a sense that a lot of these communities are actually going to launch their own meme coins. So it's kind of like, right, maybe the party goes on, right? Holders kind of get exposure to that and they start driving things further. I mean, I think in general, right, what we're seeing on Bitcoin is, in my mind, everything that we've seen elsewhere will happen on Bitcoin. We'll see DeFi, we'll see all these things. And the point is so all these tailwinds for Bitcoin and for ordinals and for, layers built on Bitcoin have been just starting. Right. So it just feels like, they're entry points for normies or folks to kind of get in early, as opposed to sort of buying the bags of the guys who made, money on ETH and are now kind of right in this sort of ETH bear market or localized ETH NFT bear market. So that's just my thought around that. Yeah.
Look, really, really interesting stuff. I definitely agree with you that every time another chain develops its NFT ecosystem, it kind of speed runs what we've already seen on ETH. Like ETH has had this time, and I've been speaking with Brett about this, or he's articulated it in a similar way, I think, which is like ETH has had all this man hours of building. Like if you think of these chains as cities, ETH is like the most developed because they've had so much time and people, manpower building it up. And then Solana kind of knows, some of the structures now because they can see it built out, so they can go a bit faster. Bitcoin now can see how the things work, and you can make some decisions like, yes, we want that, we don't. Whereas ETH maybe is a bit more experimental, right? Maybe people don't even need to make some of the same mistakes that these NFT communities made on ETH or Solana previously, because they've seen how it's played out a little bit before. And from the infrastructure perspective too, you don't need to make some of those same mistakes because you can see what worked well and what didn't. And maybe you've got some personal constraints as well, depending on what chain you're on. But very, very interesting stuff. I hope that was an interesting conversation. We are at time today, but we're going to be back for the people who are new here. And I think there must be a lot of people because this is record numbers. We have 250 live watching on YouTube and X. We have a truckload, I think 160 listening in as well. Very grateful for you joining us. We do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. GMT every day, where we go through everything to do with the NFT market and as it relates to crypto at the same time. So thank you so much for joining. We hope you join again. I'm your host, Bcheck. Please do follow the Modern Market account on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, Bcheck. I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Legendary, and Sammy. You got to follow them too. And you should probably follow our speakers as well for all of the smart insights they've been providing. Thank you so much, Akin, Jack, Confusion, Oxy, Tiro, and NFT Stats. As always, have a wonderful day. We will be back with you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.